Hi, I'm Rebecca Bach-Harcel. Let's talk about Robert Hayden's poem, Those Winter Sundays. Robert Hayden was Poet Laureate of the United States back in the day. And this title is interesting because it already lets us know that he's talking about something that's recurring. Every Sunday during the winter, this happens that he's about to describe. Sundays, too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. Then with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather, made banked fires blaze. No one ever thanked him. And that's the first 5 lines. It's worth noting that there are 14 lines to this poem, but it's not a traditional sonnet, although it kind of looks like a sonnet. Now the first 5 lines introduce us to the father. Sundays too, my father got up early. So this implies that the father gets up early every day, including Sunday. He definitely gets up early to go to work, but Sunday, even if it's not a work day, he's getting up early. And what's he doing? He's banking the fires. So the fire has gotten low in the night. It's burned down to just embers. And the father's coming in to bank it, to add new wood and get it blazing again. So by now, with the fire almost out, the house is very cold, and that cold is what's described in line 2. He put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. Ugh. So the cold is described as blue-black. I also associate it with the pre-dawn dark of the winter. You know how winter brings long nights and short days. So when you wake up at 6 or 7 in the morning, even 8, the sky looks like it's 2 in the morning. It's dark. So we have blue-black of the sky, but he uses the word blue-black to describe the cold. And notice how you have k for cold, blue-black, also the word clothes, and then in line 3, cracked and ached. This is a lot of k, and that technique is called consonance. He is repeating k throughout. Now later we have banked and blaze, and so that's a repetition of b. So he's using a lot of sound play here, even though he doesn't have the rhyme and rhythm of a conventional sonnet. Sound play is the big poetic device. Okay, so the father gets up early, even though it's Sunday, in the cold, and with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather. So the man works hard. He's got hands that are cracked from the hard work and the dryness, the cold, and the weekday weather is harsh too. I mean, it's winter. So Sunday, he takes those cracked hands that have worked all week and he makes banked fires blaze. So he gets the fire going and warms up the house. And then it says, no one ever thanked him. A short sentence after a lot of long, well, a long sentence, we have a short one. No one ever thanked him. So here's a little bit of a realization on the part of the speaker. The speaker is a child looking back, well, an adult looking back to childhood and remembering his father. And he realizes, wow, no one thanked him. No one thanked the dad for getting up in the cold and bringing up the fire, warming up the house for everyone else. It was a thankless task. Dad just did it. That was his job as a dad, and he performed his duty, and nobody ever thought to say, hey, thanks, Dad. No one ever thanked him. So the speaker is a little regretful about that. He realizes, yeah, that was deserving of thanks. Now the next stanza. I'd wake and hear the cold splintering, breaking. When the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house. Okay, now we're meeting the sun. And the sun says, I'd wake and hear the cold splintering, breaking. So we have 2 ing words, and it's quite vivid, this idea of the cold splintering, breaking. It reminds me of ice that splinters and breaks, and just the stiffness that the cold weather brings. So he is waking up in the cold, and he hears his father call him, but not until the rooms are warm. So once the rooms warm up, Dad calls to the sun, slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house. So now we're getting a sense of the emotions in this family. The relationship between father and son, it's not entirely harmonious. It's sounding complicated, maybe even a little scary. Chronic angers. Again, we have the hard C, chronic angers. Anger doesn't sound very pleasant or warm. It sounds like the emotions are cold, as well as the weather being cold. And this is why the sun rises slowly. He doesn't want to rock the boat, create more anger, or he just has to face the anger that's already in the air. It's a difficult house to live in, and maybe this is a difficult man to love, this father. All right, let's go on to the last stanza. Speaking indifferently to him who had driven out the cold and polished my good shoes as well, what did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices? Okay, speaking indifferently, this is pretty typical of kids, that they speak without any particular warmth and love and appreciation. They're too young. They don't know. They just talk. It's just my dad. Nobody's special. So he speaks indifferently, almost apathetically, not caring. This is how he talks to his dad. This whole poem is almost an apology for that he didn't speak to his father in a more appreciative way. But then, like we said, this father might be rather hard to love. So speaking indifferently to him who had driven out the cold and polished my good shoes as well, he realizes, my dad drove out the cold. He made it warm for us, and he polished my shoes. Good shoes, perhaps for Sunday church. His good shoes are already polished. Thanks, Dad. This is not what he said back then, but it's what the poem is saying now. I appreciate what you did. And the very ending, what did I know? What did I know? Well, this is repeated, this phrase. I feel like possibly he means to forgive himself here, like, what did I know? I was just a kid. How could I know that my dad was making sacrifices for me? Even though he was angry, or even though we had tension, I just didn't realize that he was being a good dad, at least in these ways. And then you have what did I know repeated. So it seems like maybe one is for self-forgiveness, but maybe the other one is, again, self-incrimination. Like, gosh, I really missed it. It just went over my head. What did I know? I knew nothing. And what about of love's austere and lonely offices? Love's duties, the parents' duties, how hard it is to love, and the kind of sacrifices parents make for their children. And it's austere. Austere means not comfy, but difficult. Not soft, but hard and harsh. Love is harsh sometimes. It's not convenient. So austere and lonely. Dad getting up alone in the dark for the sake of the family. It's lonely. Now the son can appreciate it. And that's the real final full message of the poem is, Dad, now I get it. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this poem and you have ideas of your own about it, and leave them in the comments. And it's always fun to see what you have to say. See you next time.